Hey, this is Khan. Welcome to Ninja Pulls. Golden Pursuits is a new reward system coming to ESO in Update 44. The devs say it's designed to give players even more ways to earn in-game rewards. It's quite similar to the existing Endeavors system, but more generous and tied to specific rewards like mounts, pets, costumes, crown crates, and not a virtual currency. But is it good? Well, most of us like free stuff, so yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is gonna be popular with players. But I do have one potentially major criticism based on the campaigns we've seen on PTS so far, but we'll come back to that. For now, let's look at how it works, how grindy is it, are the rewards good, is it worth doing basically, and what do the devs get out of it? How it works is simple. Golden Pursuits are time-limited campaigns, with various targets or pursuits to complete, such as kill enemies, sell items, steal items, complete battlegrounds, kill trial bosses, and so on. Many of them will just happen automatically as you play, but you may have to deviate from your usual routine to get some of them. Still, they look pretty forgiving if you just play the game regularly. You unlock rewards on completing 3, 6, and 9 different pursuits within the allotted time frame, plus a capstone reward for completing 10. Well, actually, the first PTS campaign had 12 pursuits, with 8 needed for the capstone reward, but the second and third campaigns had 15 pursuits to choose from, with 10 needed for the capstone reward. So this seems to be the format they're heading for. They also ditched the idea of having specific rewards tied to specific pursuits after week 1. Although this might come back for things like events or new content launches, where the devs have a specific activity they really want to funnel us into, like the new upcoming 2-team battlegrounds, for example. Quick reminder that this is all on PTS. The format could change, and the devs might even tweak it after it goes live. ZOS haven't said how often we'll get Golden Pursuits, but we do know they won't always be active. They'll appear now and then with an in-game announcement, and we'll have a week, 10 days, 15 days, or whatever to complete them. During that time, you can track specific pursuits just like a quest. Click the pin, and you'll see your progress in your UI as you go. As you complete more, rewards will unlock until you get the final capstone reward, hopefully before the time is up. So that's how it works. Point 1 ticked. We'll come back to points 2 and 3 in a minute. The short answer is yes to both, but let's move on to the last point. Why are ZOS doing this? I think of it as a bit like a loyalty program at a retail store. Regular customers get free stuff and feel valued, encouraging them to keep coming back to that specific store rather than shopping around at random. The basic idea has been around in retail for about half a century, and vast amounts have been invested in researching and better understanding the psychology behind it, so it makes perfect sense for the gaming industry to borrow some of that knowledge. Also, MMOs need a constant trickle of stuff to keep players engaged. It's not easy, and live service games cannot afford to take their audience for granted, especially if they rely on network effects where the more active players they have, the better and more appealing the game becomes. When you consider what's at stake, it's kind of surprising we didn't get something like this years ago. It is true that Golden Pursuit is not going to be a silver bullet. If a player drifts away from ESO because of work, other games, or whatever, this one feature won't stop that. But if you're ZOS, you've got to be hoping that it will expand player engagement, especially with the pursuits spread across different parts of the game. To complete 10 of them, PvEers might have to dip into a bit of PvP and vice versa. Other games have definitely done this exact thing before, and even though both PvP and PvE in this game are pretty solid, we all know so many players who are super deep into one of them but almost never touch the other. Mostly because they just haven't had the practice, and we prefer to do the things we're good at. It's also similar to Endeavors, which were added 3 years ago when Microsoft first acquired ZeniMax, to comply with the new parent company's policy that loot box rewards must also be earnable in-game. This reads a bit like an extension of that idea, possibly to insulate the studio from growing distrust of loot boxes among gamers and the press. The fact that the rewards are specific and not some virtual currency with a vague value which we can spend on rewards that may come to the Crown Store in future, it just means the incentive should be a lot more immediate. I don't know. It's definitely more generous, and less demanding. With the Endeavours system, if you don't log in for 5 days, you've missed a lot of what was on offer that week, so you might just not bother. But with Golden Pursuits, you have loads of time to hit all of those targets. One of the PTS campaigns lasted 15 days, so you can really take your time or smash 10 pursuits in one sitting if you want. The point is, players who don't log in as often are not going to feel excluded, so ZOS are probably hoping it'll be better at catching those people than Endeavours has been. And finally, it's probably also a response to player feedback. The relatively small number of cool mounts and cosmetics earnable in-game, compared to the enormous range and spectacular visuals of the mounts and cosmetics in the Crown Store, is one of the most consistent complaints I hear from players in this game. Maya and Hyperioxes were talking about exactly this on our Twitch channel just a couple of weeks ago. And there is a general feeling that other MMOs have more cool stuff locked behind achievements or rare drops or whatever. ESO used to have plenty of that. The Worm Wizard personality from Fang Lair, the Beast from March of Sacrifices, these were some of the coolest cosmetics you could unlock at the time. But ZOS stopped doing it, and now it's pretty much just the trifecta mounts that are left, and even they aren't anywhere near as fancy as the Crown Store stuff. That sucks. And maybe Golden Pursuits is a way to bring some of these great collectibles back into the game, but without locking them behind achievements or content that a lot of players think they can't manage. Again, ZOS haven't said any of this. I'm just speculating, hopefully in a way that makes sense, and by answering what the devs get out of this system, we've also touched on a few things that the players get out of it. But I should say I have no special insight and I'm not looking to praise or criticize ZOS over this. The arrival of Golden Pursuits is just something none of us really expected, and ZOS haven't done much to trail the new system or put it into context, so that's what I'm trying to do here. But is it going to be worth doing? Are the rewards worth the grind? I already said the short answer was yes, but again I can only base that on what I've seen on PTS. There is a bit of grind involved, but not as much as you might think. The individual pursuits have been very simple for the most part, similar to daily endeavours. Most of them I would easily get in a typical week, but obviously the less you play day to day, the less true that is, and the more of a grind this will turn out to be for you. But still, if the individual pursuits go live looking more or less like this, the majority of players are going to get some free stuff for doing little more than they normally do, which is great. The rewards themselves look pretty decent too. In the last 2 campaigns, at 3 pursuits you get a pet, at 6 you get 5 crown crates, at 9 a big bundle of gold, and then a costume at 10. The first campaign in week 1 of PTS had a mount as the final reward, arguably better than a costume. Now, I really don't know how much we should read into these rewards. They might just be placeholders and the format could be completely different on live. But just in case this is indicative of the direction ZOS are taking, there was one major thing here that I definitely want to criticize, or at least draw attention to. These rewards are repeats. They're not new, they're old collectibles that were already sold in the Crown Store previously, and which plenty of players have already paid for. The mount from week 1 looked new to me, I'm not sure, but both the capstone rewards in campaigns 2 and 3 are definitely old costumes that many players already own. And before you start thinking, ha, joke's on you, you shouldn't have paid real money for a virtual collectible, that's no argument at all. Almost all of us have at some point seen something in the Crown Store that we wanted, and which we've gladly paid for either with crowns that we bought, or that came with our ESO Plus allowance, or we've traded in-game gold for it. Just imagine that any of those items you've paid for are now going to be free for everyone, except you. You can still participate in the Golden Pursuits campaign, but you won't get anything at the end. You're effectively being excluded and penalized for that purchase. Now, let's keep things in perspective. These are just virtual collectibles in an MMO. We're not talking about some life-changing credit or grave injustice, it's the very thin end of the wedge. But humans do have an instinctive negative reaction to this sort of basic unfairness, no matter how small it is. It just isn't the right way to do it. Earlier this year at GDC in San Francisco, trial lawyer Eric Weiss gave a presentation all about dark patterns. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that that's what's happening here, I only mention it because Weiss also gave an interview to PC Gamer at the same time, and this very example of an MMO making their players pay or grind for something only to give it away for free later on was specifically mentioned in that interview as one of the things developers should be very wary of. Remember, this is a guy who earns a living defending studios and publishers in these sorts of lawsuits. Anyway, hopefully it's as I said, and these PTS rewards are just placeholders, they don't mean anything, and there's no need for me to say any of this. But if ZOS goes ahead and starts routinely giving away collectibles which were previously paid for, I would encourage them to at least do it as little as possible. Or ideally, make the game recognize when a reward is already owned by a player and give them some seals of endeavor instead. That would solve the problem completely. What we've seen on PTS so far just isn't the way to do it in my opinion, and it sends totally the wrong message about the Crown Store. Going back to that opening question, is this new system good? Yes, Golden Pursuit is pretty much a win for players no matter what shape it arrives in. I wanted to provide some feedback while PTS is still up. If you agree, make sure you let ZOS know what you think. Head to the forums, look for a thread on this topic or start a new one, or open a ticket in PTS. They've demonstrated in the past that they do listen to us if our concerns are legitimate and widespread. Many thanks to all our wonderful supporters on YouTube and on Twitch. If you're able to contribute in any way, even if it's just a like and a sub, that's always greatly appreciated. The first Golden Pursuits campaign should arrive shortly after Update 44, which launches on the 28th of October for PC and the 13th of November for consoles, together with 2 Team BGs, the new Grimoire, and a bunch of other changes. More about that in this video here. In the meantime, look after yourselves and each other, and thanks for watching.